Spookyou's Frightening Nights of Halloween.
Hello, my dear Frankenfriends, and welcome to Spookyou, your one-stop shop for all things ghastly and ghoulish. I'm your host, Barnabas Vixen, and it's night 6 of our Frightening Nights of Halloween series. We are halfway through, and we're on a time crunch since we have to make up for last night's lengthy intro. Sorry, I got a bit long-winded on that one. I apologize. Tonight's fantastic lineup consists of the Sandman, the Crimson Hour, and Just Plain Creepy. What a hat trick of sensational speakers! As for the authors, we've got NerdxCorexCreep, Bloodhunter62, Just Plain Creepy. Couldn't help but to show off, huh? Apparently everyone can write except for Barnabas. That part's actually true. I'm barely fluent on a 3rd grade reading level. And Verjuices. Jumping into tonight's first story, I present to you Precious, written by NerdxCorexCreep and narrated by the Sandman. Take it away, my beachy friend.
I couldn't wait to get home. It had been a long, exhausting day, but on the bright side, all of my hard work would be worth it. After years of research and effort, it would soon be finished, and I would be home to finally relax. Maybe have a nice dinner, and the precious love of my life. It had been a rough couple of years for us, but through all of the hardships we've endured, it would all be fine after tonight. I'd always loved her. I'd always be willing to do anything for her. She was very precious to me after all. The rain was coming down pretty hard. So hard that all I could hear were the sounds of heavy raindrops slamming and splashing onto the ground. It always sucked walking in the rain, but she was right there too, and that made it worth it. Granted, she was a pretty fast walker. I'd swear if I stopped for a second, she'd walk off and leave me behind. She was always quick to the point, no time for distractions or second thoughts, just point A to point B. It'd only been a couple of years since I first laid eyes on her, but she'd been a very important part of my life since day one. At this point, I knew everything there was to know about her. Hell, I would go so far as to say that I know her better than anyone, maybe even herself. Finally, we made it to the house. I was so happy to get out of the rain. I swear I felt like I was soaked down to the bone. Quickly, she unlocked the door and hurried in, escaping the storm, and I quickly followed behind, but before I could put my hand on the doorknob, it occurred to me that I had forgotten something. Shit. I'd always hated it when I was so forgetful, especially when it came to my son's birthday. These were a rough couple of years of late nights and hard work, but that was no excuse. I made my way back to the office and searched my desk for it. There it is, my son's birthday gift. Now I had to make my way back to the house. I should probably invest in a new car. Finally, I made it back to the house, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The house was dark and quiet. She must have already gone to bed. I always hated having to sneak around not to wake up the whole house. I swear sounds are magnified tenfold when you're trying to be quiet. I hung my coat up on the rack and slowly made my way upstairs. Each creak on the steps made my heart race. I knew if I woke her up, she would probably kick my ass, and it'd been far too long of a night to have to deal with that. Finally making my way to the top step, I walked slowly and quietly. First was the kids' room. I peeked inside to check on them. Still fast asleep. Good. Such precious angels. I continued walking until I got to the master bedroom. As I thought, she was already fast asleep. Slowly unzipping my hoodie and laying it gently on the floor, I walked up to her and stared at her sleeping face. She was an incredibly beautiful woman, no doubt about that. I sighed and unsheathed my knife, taking a deep breath. It was too bad that she was so hideously ugly on the inside. Quickly and effectively, I covered her mouth with one hand and plunged the knife deep into her temple with the other. Her eyes opened wide with confusion, pain, terror, and eventually, emptiness. She would have appreciated this method. No time for distractions, no time to fuck around with torture or suffering. No showing her a photo of my son, no asking if she knew what his name was, nor how old he was when she murdered him. No asking what was so important that she was speeding so fast that day, running that red light, and slamming right into me as I carried my son in my arms, injuring me badly, but killing my boy on impact. No asking why she fled the scene, leaving me to die as well. No, there was no time for any of that. I'd spent too much time with this obsession. I'd spent numerous time and resources finding her, learning everything I could about her, planning for this very moment. It was my son's birthday. I had all this planned out exactly how I needed it to go, and there was no time for deviations. One quick thrust and it was all over. I slowly exhaled in relief as I slid the blade from her head, staring at her cold, dead eyes. Quickly but quietly, I made my way out of the house and headed home, making sure that there was no one around to see me. It had been a long night. Hell, it had been a long couple of years since Carter died. I was finally home though, and it felt so good to be here. Once again, I removed my coat and placed it on the rack. I made my way upstairs and looked into Carter's room, vacant yet untouched for the last 2 years. Finally, I made it to my bedroom, Meredith laying peacefully asleep. I truly do love her, and I've always been willing to do anything for her. As hard as Carter's passing had been on me, Meredith had taken it especially hard. Things got very rough for us, between the fighting, the blaming, and the separations. Things would be better now. We could start the process of moving forward. We had to. After a long, hot shower, I climbed into bed and held her close. She slowly opened her eyes and, staring into mine, asked if it was done. I nodded in confirmation, and for the first time in 2 years, I saw a genuinely beautiful smile. There were only a few more hours until sunrise, so I got the little bit of sleep in that I could before waking up to head to the cemetery. It was Carter's birthday after all, and we had to take his gift to him. At his grave, I gently laid down the small toy dinosaur I had gotten from my office near his headstone. He always loved dinosaurs. They were precious to him, as he was precious to me. A tear fell from my eye, and I stood, telling him once more that I loved him. Hand in hand, Meredith and I made our way back home, to move forward. Home at last.
Impressive as always, the Sandman. As the name suggests, this guy has the perfect voice to fall asleep to. Seriously, some of our interns lull their kids into an eternal slumber with this man's videos. And there are a number of videos on his channel for you to enjoy. And if you'd like to keep up with everything that he's doing, be sure to follow him on Twitter at the Sandman TSN. The author of Precious is NerdxCorexCreep. Now, there are a number of places for you to follow this talented author, but be sure to head on over to his Reddit profile and binge his stories. Through there, you'll also find posts that he shared from his YouTube channel, where he narrates scary stories. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at NerdxCorexCreep, and if you'd like to support this author with more than just your clicks, there are a number of ways to do so, from Patreon to Ko-fi to Teespring, where you can score some sick merch. You'll find the link to each of these listed in the description below, so be sure to check those out. Next up on our show is A Wendigo Broke Into My House, written by Bloodhunter62 and narrated by The Crimson Hour.
Before I begin, I'm a 16-year-old male. About 3 years ago, I was in Virginia visiting family over summer. We were right outside the DC area and staying in a 2-story house near the freeway. On the other side of the freeway was a forest, so my mom, her boyfriend Eric, and I were all staying with Eric's parents. We had brought some night vision binoculars and decided that tonight was the perfect time to use them. So, after dinner, we gear up and head out. We pass under the freeway and head into the woods. When we get about 5 minutes into the forest, we set down our bag and take out our binocs. My mom looks around with them for a while, seeing a few squirrels here and there. She gets tired of them and passes them to me. I look around for a while, being careful not to look at the freeway for fear of being blinded. I spot something behind a tree about 50 feet to our left. I concentrate on it, trying to figure out what it is. Looks like a pale, bald, anorexic man looking straight at us from behind the tree. I get a bit uneasy, but I'm hesitant to believe it's really there. I ask Eric to take a look, just in case. To my despair, he sees it too. He describes it much the same way I did. Now, Eric is a former amateur boxer, and I train MMA almost every day. Neither one of us wants to stick around with that thing. We start heading back to the house, crossing under the freeway. We take another look behind us as a car comes by. All three of us see glowing eyes lit up by the headlights on the other side of the freeway. We say fuck that and head back to our house. When we get back, Eric's parents are asleep and my mom and Eric go upstairs to the guest room. There's only one guest room, so I have the couch downstairs. I'm a little too excited after seeing the thing in the woods, so I end up staying up all night. Around 3 a.m., I'm watching TV and start hearing footsteps above me. I immediately remember our earlier encounter and panic a little. I try to calm down and tell myself it's just one of the dogs or maybe someone who couldn't sleep. I keep hearing the footsteps for a while, until I hear a doorknob jiggle. I find it weird that they're trying to open a locked door, but try to ignore it. They stop, walk around for a few more minutes, and then it's quiet again. I stay up until the sun starts coming up and then pass out. My mom wakes me up and I remember the footsteps from the night before. I describe what happened and ask if one of them got up at any time. She says no, and I think it must have been one of the dogs. That is, until she tells me the room above me is the office. No one was in the office and the door stays locked at night. My heart sinks as I piece it all together. I don't know if it was that thing for sure, but I think it was. I've done a lot of research since then, trying to figure out what that thing was that night. I found 2 creatures that seemed to match it. I think it was either a skinwalker or a Wendigo. Whichever one it was, I'm just thankful that door was locked. I know I wouldn't be able to fight the thing no matter how tough I am.
The Crimson Hour, coming in with a masterful narration. With only 19 subs as of this recording, he certainly is a hidden gem on YouTube. you'll find 16 videos to watch on his channel, with more to come. So smash that subscribe button while you're there, and let's get this guy some much-deserved attention. Follow him on Twitter while you're at it, at @OurCrimson. Now let's talk about Bloodhunter62, the narrator of this story. On their Reddit profile, you'll find a handful of stories to dive into. They post periodically to r/nosleep as well as a few other subreddits. Head on over, give them a follow, and get your horrorthon on. Our next story is 14, written and narrated by Just Plain Creepy. I mean, you guys blow me away with this. Our writing department is far too understaffed and lazy to produce any original work. You guys looking for employment? We pay handsomely, though not with money. I'm just rambling at this point. Take it away, JPC.
I've always hated family gatherings. I hate my birthday most of all. Year in, year out, it's always the same. Everyone goes through the motions. Everyone plays their part. My mom bustles about the kitchen, preparing finger food and greeting the guests with a fake smile plastered across her face. My dad always drinks way too much and staggers around, laughing too loud and slapping people on the back way too hard. My grandmother smothers me with kisses, and I shudder with disgust as I feel her hairy chin brush against my cheek. My uncle bombards me with questions, asking if I have a girlfriend yet, and if not, why not? My aunt tells me all about her son and how well and perfect he is and how he's doing in school. She always takes pain to mention me and how smart he is and how he is so much smarter than me. My little cousins race around the house like cockroaches, stomping on the floor, jumping on the stairs, squealing and hollering at the top of their lungs. They climb over furniture and crawl under tables, pulling and tugging at everything in sight. Nothing goes untouched by their grubby little hands. Around and around they go, like rats on a wheel. I honestly can't believe I'm related to these people, but I have to hold my tongue. I don't want them to resent me more than they already do. The table is lined with soggy sandwiches and stale chips. Bottles of wine are followed by bottles of whiskey and vodka. They all sit around the living room gulping down their drinks, swapping stories about the good old times, and boasting about themselves. I cringe and listen to them laughing and cackling like a bunch of hyenas. It's enough to drive anyone insane. I get up and leave the room, desperate to clear my head. I know that in his jacket pocket my uncle has a packet of cigarettes and a lighter. Surely he won't miss one, I think. I can hear all the adults in the living room singing a song, so I go to the kitchen to sneak a quick smoke. Surely nobody will notice. There's a strange smell in the air that makes me wrinkle up my nose, but I don't pay much attention to it. My little cousins are already in the kitchen, up to mischief as usual. They give me a startled look when I come in, as if they've done something naughty and they're afraid I'll catch them. I put the cigarette between my lips and head over towards the window. I flick the cigarette lighter and suddenly a jet of flame shoots across the room to the old gas stove. There's a deafening explosion, and the room erupts in flames. The whole house is on fire. I hear the screams and cries. I smell the burning flesh. I feel the intense heat as we are all consumed in the inferno, and I close my eyes and sigh with relief as it dissolves into silence. Until next year, when I'll be 14 again. Over and over again. Forever 14.
Now that you've heard what Just Plain Creepy had to say about being 14 forever, let me tell you a little bit about the man behind the story. If your thing is horror narrations, then boy, do I have good news for you. There's so many videos on his channel to choose from, you'll spend eons binging his content. And what's really cool is he even makes little horror movies. A lot of really cool stuff here, so make sure you subscribe to his channel and follow him on Twitter to keep up with everything he's doing at Fuzzy Pantaloons. Probably the best Twitter handle I've had the pleasure of reading. It's that time, folks. Time for the final story of the night. Next up, we've got The Wishing Stone, written by Verjuices and narrated by our vivacious voiceover virtuoso. I'll see you after the story. It was a twist of inexplicable fortune that I found the Wishing Stone. It looked just like any normal rock, small, gray, and round. I'm not sure why I bothered picking it up when it was just so unextraordinary in every way. And yet, here I was. It didn't take me long to realize the potential of the stone. I was studying it when a car whizzed by, coating me with a wave of dirty rainwater. I wished I had a way to dry off, and instantly a pristine white towel appeared in my hand, plucked from some mysterious depths of the universe by the Wishing Stone. Holding the towel up in disbelief, I tried wishing again. Nothing happened. Accepting that I had wasted my one moment of the supernatural, I sighed and shoved my hand into my pockets. My fingers brushed the rock, and it clicked. I had found a wishing stone. I made the reasonable assumption that I had had 3 wishes, 2 left now, and carefully planned 2 perfect wishes that couldn't backfire. But the wishes didn't end. I wished for money and fame, love and health. I wished and pretended I was as clueless as everyone else with my sudden turn of fate. I was selfish, and I think the rock could tell. It began screwing with my wishes, twisting my words around in an attempt to make me slip up. But I was too clever. My pride wouldn't let me be bested by a stone. And so the rock waited patiently, waiting for its chance to strike. The chance came when I woke up to my alarm, just like I did every morning. My hand cramped as it clenched the stone, which I never let out of my grasp. I rolled over and ignored the beeping, and carelessly thought the fateful words. I wish I didn't have to get up. I realized my mistake a second after, but it was too late. Instantly, I was rooted to the bed, unable to move or even blink. I frantically tried to reverse my wish, but realized with a panic that the stone had slipped from my grasp. My body was found days later, and I was immediately rushed to the hospital, where I was declared to be in a coma. I watched relatives and friends cry over my still figure as I was unable to acknowledge their existence. I tried desperately to think of a way to tell them about the stone, wishing I had thought to tell some of them about the stone before, and recognizing the irony of wishing for things now. Over time, I saw fewer friends and family, saw fewer doctors and nurses, spent all my time watching the ceilings. I watched as my plug was pulled and I was pronounced dead with no way to prove my consciousness. Now, I just watch the wooden walls of my coffin, and I wish more than anything that I could die. And on to our final author segment of the night as we begin to wrap things up. I found Verjuices on the Short Scary Stories subreddit, and it looks like there's more where that came from. They've got a number of other bite-sized treats for you to devour if you're in the mood for some mini morsels. You can find all of their stories on Reddit, so be sure to check the link in the description below so that you can go follow them and show your support. And that's gonna wrap things up for us tonight, my darling deviants. Thank you so much to the narrators and authors that lent their talents to this video, and be sure you devour the links in the description to check out each and every one of them. This wouldn't be possible without all of their hard work. Now tomorrow we'll be back again at the same time with more narrators and authors to satiate that horrific appetite of yours. Smash that thumbs up, annihilate that subscribe button, and ring that little bell while you're at it. Until next time, my ghastly gang, stay spooky.